So, Chief, I've been here 4 years. The first one that comes to mind, Sierra Guyton, playing on a playground, shot and killed. Then Layla Peterson, sitting on her grandfather's lap. Now, a little baby Tao, a little 1-year-old who wasn't even involved in anything, wrong house. So now we have Justin. How does this impact you, besides just being the head of the department?
Something about a child murder affects everybody. Certainly affects the cops, it affects the neighborhood, it's excruciating for the family. Heck, it even affects the criminal community in terms of the fact that we often get more cooperation in these investigations. I mean, in the last 10 years I've been here, 12 children under the age of 14 have been murdered by gunfire. That's appalling. You know, our detectives work tirelessly on these cases. So far, in the preceding 11, we've cleared 10 by arrest or exceptional clearances. Sometimes the suspects have killed themselves. But my point is that they will take as long as it takes to clear these cases. You know, it could be a year, it could be more than a year. In the case of Justin, we've got some good leads. We've made arrests, but not of the suspects. We've been doing other investigations, and some people have gotten arrested. In the context of the investigation, we find out they're wanted for other things, okay? But my point is, we're tirelessly working in the neighborhood. I still think there's people in the neighborhood that know things that they might be nervous about coming forward, but we're counting on the neighborhood to really come together behind that little boy and help us get some justice for him. Would
you say that this would be an example of community policing, and how can the community help the police in this specific case?
Absolutely. I mean, we cannot be effective as an agency without the approval and cooperation of the community. We recognize that that varies from neighborhood to neighborhood for a variety of reasons. But we also know from our prior experience, everybody gets the death of innocence. Everybody. You know, the same characters that might not cooperate with us on a, you know, gang member shooting often will when they just perceive an injustice like this. That little boy, there's no reason in the world that little boy should have been hit by gunfire, no matter what the shooter's excuse was or what the shooter thought they were doing. And, you know, from what I saw Sunday, that neighborhood is adamant about this, and I'm very hopeful that adamancy will translate into information that will help us solve this crime.
And again, so I can be sure, no arrest in the actual crime, but arrest associated with just gathering information?
Right.
Okay. So let's switch gears and talk about some misinformation, possibly, in regards to a number of SOPs. Can we talk about what changes you made to the SOP in regards to immigration enforcement?
Well, there's a saga there.
Okay.
And I made the dreadful mistake of being away on vacation when my governing body met, and I won't make that mistake again. But all kidding aside, when I saw the DVD recording of that meeting and saw some of the transcripts, as well as read the newspaper coverage, it was clear that my board was accusing me of having done something underhanded and secret about changing the immigration policy, and they were furious. I mean, they read the Riot Act. I'm out of control. They're not going to permit this. They're going to change rules to make sure this never happens again. They've had it with my arrogance and my whatever, fill in the blanks. It was an all-out attack, 7-0. And what was stunning to me was there was absolutely nothing I did in the formulation of this policy that was not done with the full knowledge, awareness, and cooperation of the Director of the Fire and Police Commission, the City Attorney's Office, Milwaukee's Intergovernmental Relations Group, and keeping the Mayor's Office in the loop. All right?
So what changes were, I guess, just so everyone's kind of clear, what changes were made to that specific SOP on immigration enforcement that created this firestorm?
Well, first we have to say, why was a change thought necessary? Last September, the Obama administration issued a directive that said that no city could have an immigration policy that forbade cooperation with information sharing with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Okay? And then we had an election, which was much hullabaloo around the immigration issue. But the Trump administration comes in and essentially reissues the same directive in May of this year. And it targets 10 cities who have pending grants. They're called burn grants, okay, justice assistance grants. 10 cities had those grants coming to them. We had $500,000 coming to us. And we were given a letter from the Attorney General's office saying, you cannot get this grant unless your city attorney stipulates your immigration policy is in compliance with federal statute. All right? Okay. Our city attorney's office said our policy was not in compliance.
Okay.
It said that we were too restrictive on when officers could share information with ICE. All right? So that was the mandate. All right? Change the policy because we need to qualify federal funding now and also potentially millions of dollars down the road. All right? The city saw a threat, a significant threat, to our grant funding in the short and long term. It was perceived as a crisis.
Okay, but was that something you saw and directed to change,
Nope.
or the city said, Chief Flynn, there is an issue with grant funding if you do not change or modify this policy?
The answer is B.
Okay.
All right.
So when you modified the policy, that then created fear.
Well, first of all, I didn't modify the policy, sitting in some monk's cell somewhere and sneak it through. Okay? We had a number of meetings with the director of the Fire and Police Commission and the city attorney and intergovernmental relations. Where do we need to change? Here's the crucial change. Okay? I had a paragraph that said, members of the Milwaukee Police Department shall not share immigration status information with ICE unless the person meets one of these requirements.
Okay.
Okay? They've committed a violent crime. They've committed a crime with a gun. They are suspected of terrorism. They are a member of a criminal gang, they're actively involved in the illegal smuggling of immigrants. Okay? So you shall not share unless it's one of these things. Okay? Here's my change that set off press releases and angry press conferences and people in the street waving signs accusing us of betraying the immigrant community. I eliminated the shall not unless and simply said shall when.
When? Oh.
When they do these things. You understand? That was the change.
So there was no add-on. There was no, if you're walking down the street and we assume that you may not be a resident of the United States, we have the right to ask.
Nope. All I did was eliminate the shall not, because the city's attorney's office saying if you are commanding your people not to share information, you're out of compliance with federal statute. And that's an interpretation from the prior administration, not just this one. So by simply eliminating that information and saying, instead of saying shall not notify ICE unless they're a criminal, I said shall notify ICE when they're a criminal. That was it. Now, good, well-meaning people, and understand, the FPC rule says my policy can become official one of two ways. In either way, the FPC rule says I've got to give my policy to the FPC at least 2 weeks before it goes into effect. They have the right to hold it and have a hearing, or after 15 days, allow it to go into effect. It's a big department. We have a lot of policies. 95% of them are fix that sentence, adjust that paragraph. We got a new AG's opinion, new Supreme Court decision. They just let them go into effect. If they think it's a brand new thing, like body-worn cameras, or that it's something that's very controversial, they have the absolute right to hold it and have a hearing. It's not my call. Now, because the clock was ticking with the federal government, we had to get a certified policy by June 30th. The decision of the FPC director was, we're going to hold it and let it go into effect. Okay? And the city attorney said, you can do that. I can certify it. And if anybody doesn't like it, nothing can stop. There's nothing to stop you from changing the policy later on.
Okay.
But we'll hit the guideline. We will hit that June 30th.
In order to get the funding that we need.
Exactly. All right? So somewhere along the line, late in the game, the decision was made to brief LULAC and VOSIS, and they collectively set their hair on fire.
Gotcha.
Now, I get it. I do understand it, despite my, expression here. Immigration was such a controversy during the election, it was very heated. B, nobody likes a surprise. And C, they were suspicious of any change. But I went from shall not unless to shall when. That was it.
With the criteria that has already been on the books.
The criteria that predated me. I mean, that criteria was in there back from even before I was chief. So they hit the streets, everybody goes crazy, I go on vacation, and now it's all about we've got to change the language, we've got to change the language, we've got to change the language. I'm on the phone all week while I'm on vacation saying, okay, I understand this is a political crisis. Not my call. I'm not going to get in the way, but for crying out loud, don't change those criteria because they've been consistent for a decade, okay? Don't confuse the cops any more than necessary. So they crafted language that now said almost exactly what I said, except officers shall, at their discretion, notify ICE when somebody's in a gang, is a violent criminal, has a gun. That's it, okay? That's it. And based on that, FPC members tore after me that I'd hidden this from the community. Their FPC
that you
director.
did not use the word discretion.
When I'm driving, I didn't use the word discretion, but more importantly, everything I had done. I'm looking at the video, and there's the director of the Fire and Police Commission sitting there silent as they accuse me of doing something underhanded outside their rules when everything I did was with her knowledge and approval. And the city attorney's office, and intergovernmental relations, and the mayor's office. So the only way I can sum this up is, all right, everybody got group pictures and group hugs afterwards about saving the immigrant community from the mean,
but you were on
dastardly police
vacation and got left out.
Yeah, I was kept up to date. But my point is, everybody wanted to be a hero. That did not require making me the villain. All right? And so now we have a policy that basically says it's a discretionary decision of our officers to report terrorists to ICE. Okay. Maybe that'll get certified. I don't know. But ultimately, that solved the political problem.
Right, that's solved the political problem. But the problem that still remains with you and some non-documented residents is this. If a non-documented resident is walking down the street and sees a Milwaukee Police Squad car go by, should they be fearful?
Of course not, any more than they were fearful beforehand. Policy makes it explicit in the preface that we don't do immigration enforcement. We don't have the authority to do immigration enforcement.
And you're not trying to do immigration enforcement?
I mean, nothing changed. Shall not unless became shall when.
And with discretion.
Now it's shall when with discretion. So that's the controversy.
Okay.
It would be funny, except I've got 7 members of this board that think I'm an unethical, sneaky person that did something underhanded when I did it at the direction of the city, with the representatives of the city, and with their director. And nobody would step forward and clear my name, so I've got to do it myself.
Understandable. So let's switch to the next policy that seems to be a big issue, the pursuit policy, the directive that you were given. Why is this a dangerous direction to go in changing what they're asking? Sure.
Well, listen, again, I have to step back. I can't help but think that the tenor of the directive to me that threatened, demotion, suspension, or firing unless I implemented it, I can't believe that was unrelated to their anger at me over the false accusations about my involvement in the immigration policy, all right? But here's my concern about it. I understand FPC is responding to the Board of Aldermen who are conveying concerns of residents about driving behavior. Certainly within their ambit of authority. It's within their authority to direct policy changes. It's built into the FPC rules. But it's my obligation to keep them from making bad public policy. I changed our pursuit policy in 2010 because 4 people got killed in 3 months by people fleeing from the police. All right? Police pursuits are inherently dangerous. Jesus, really? Crikey.
We got 2 minutes.
Okay. All right. Pursuits are inherently dangerous. Every day of the week, virtually every day, someone dies in America engaged in a police pursuit. About 50 officers a year get killed in police pursuits. It's important. When I changed the policy for the next 4 years, stolen cars continue to go down, crashes were still going down. Something changed in 2015, and we're not sure what. But keep in mind two things about our pursuit policy. We restrict it to pursuing people and vehicles wanted for violent crimes. All right? Secondarily, it's been cited as a national model by the Police Executive Research Forum. It's been replicated in Boston, San Francisco, Baltimore, Dallas, a number of cities. But you got people saying
we've got the criminals taking over the streets and we need police to basically chase for anything, a traffic infraction.
Right. I know.
Why is that dangerous?
It's dangerous because I had 300 pursuits last year. Okay? We've had a 200% increase in pursuits in the last 2 years. Now, only 9% of our pursuits are traffic violations. Nationally, it's 2/3.
Do you believe, though, creating this list that they want you to create will reduce crime?
The list they want me to create is a version of racial profiling, to tell you the honest to God's truth. Okay? I mean, what's a mobile drug house? A bunch of young men in a car with tinted windows. How do you define that? And at a time when the nation is saying you're putting too many people in jail for nonviolent drug offenses, I'm supposed to chase and arrest them now, careening through the community because we think maybe they're a mobile drug house. They took a number of data points that were unrelated to our pursuit policy and have not sought an alternate explanation. I mean, what does it mean? I've had a 250% increase in juveniles arrested for stolen cars in the last couple of years. All right? Something on the order of 25% of them have been arrested 2 or 3 times within a year for the same crime. What happens after we arrest people? What lessons are folks learning from the criminal justice system? Can we take a deep breath and allow, first of all, my data-driven traffic enforcement program to achieve some results, which we implemented this year, and secondarily, find out other explanations of why, when other people are emulating my policy, but they're not having that level of reckless behavior, what's going on in Milwaukee besides the policy change? I mean, their directive literally accused my policy of causing the opioid crisis.
I noticed that. I did notice that.
I mean,
so here I ask, is there any happy medium you believe you can come up with, that the F&P can come up with before Thursday or after Thursday, that can give them a sense of security and you a sense that you are also keeping your officers and the people of Milwaukee safe?
Well, you know, I believe we have to have an adult conversation that I'm included in. I mean, they had a 45-minute meeting before they issued that directive, and the police department was excluded from the meeting. So if we're going to be partners in protecting the community, I've got to be involved in that discussion. I think we've got a model policy. I understand the political will is to change it, and they are my directors. All right, then, let's have that adult discussion about what other variables we need to look at. And for crying out loud, let's get a city attorney's opinion as to what their directive really means, because I think we have the same interest. We want to protect the life and property in the city, and we want to protect the city from liability. And I fear that directive sets us up to take risks in all of those areas.